K1037 aims to bring Kahsennenhawe an informative, community-oriented, and diverse talk show. To ensure a wide range of opinions, K1037 reserves the right to screen calls. Guests' opinions are not necessarily those of the radio station or its management. Now, Tetewatha, all of us are talking on the Partyline Talkshow on K1037.
Was an issue with the Conservative government. They kept making it a front burner issue, then a back burner issue. So for quite some time, this MRP law has been around. And I guess thanks to our sister communities of Six Nations and also Akwesasne, they started drafting their own law way back when. So they were ahead of the ball. And through the body that is known as the Iroquois Caucus, which is the 7 Iroquois communities on the Canadian side, we have this alliance with each other and we meet quarterly. They offered their own version of their own laws. So basically it's why reinvent the wheel. So we took their law from Six Nations and Akwesasne, and with their permission, we tweaked it and used what we thought was applicable, and we created what we thought was better points and better clauses, and added to Kahnawake version of the MRP law, which is called Kahnawake Families Homes Law. So we were in reactionary mode at this point from the federal government, which was under the Harper regime, the 9-year Conservative regime, which I think some of us still have nightmares of. And we brought everything through the community decision-making process as an urgent law because of the time restraints that the time deadlines that the federal government had implemented. And if we didn't reach that deadline, federal law would dictate in Kahnawake. So that's certainly something we weren't comfortable in allowing to happen. So we got our deadlines beat, and I really need to add here and hit the ball home that it was really refreshing when we had our CDMP hearings to see the different faces that were in-house for those handful of meetings anyways. New people we had never seen at community meetings, new people who had never participated in the CDMP process and who were quite pleased and happy and very much supportive. I mean, I remember them walking out saying what a great process and how validated each one of them felt and how welcome. So they were very happy to be a part of a process that was making a difference within the community. Originally, the MRP law was, I guess, a result of concern for First Nations women on reserve who were getting maybe the raw end of the deal when a union would break, whether it be a civil or a marriage. And what happened through, the different federal governments, it seems that it took a different road. It ended up becoming not so much an issue of the First Nation women, but women who had acquired status. And I think that which is why some of the nationally, the regional Quebec, the Native Women's associations regionally some of them had pulled their support for the law along the way.
What does MRP stand for?
Matrimonial Real Property.
Okay.
MRP. I'm sorry. I guess I should have spelled that acronym out. You get so used to
using acronyms. That's it.
And you think the whole world knows about it. So I do apologize to your listeners. So here we are today. We put our law through in 2013, I believe it was. At the time, there was myself as one of the lead, and I was co-leading this with, at the time, Chief Lloyd Phillips. And our technical person was Paul Nicholas, who was working for the Office of the Council of Chiefs. So we did what we had to do. So what we're doing now is we're through the urgent process, which the law originally went through, was good for 1 year. At that point, we had to reintroduce the law and put it through a Type 1 categorization. And a Type 1 law is a law that affects the whole community as a whole, and deals with the collective or individual rights. So that's the criteria for a Type 1, and this law does fit into that. So there's a process that needs to happen here now. Again, at the time, there was multiple issues that created us to make a decision about not going forth with it. Nationally, what was happening in Ottawa, and I guess at this point, some of the community members will recall that we did submit our law, and it wasn't for approval from Minister Bernie Valcourt, the Conservative Minister we had of Indian Affairs, but it was basically an FYI that Kahnawake has our law, this is our law. Unfortunately, Minister Valcourt did not accept our law based on what he said. It was not ratified by a majority of the community or that's just not ratified. Although we used our community decision-making process, which, as you well know, Arlene, you were a part of KCR for a while, that the federal government, the bureaucrats of the government had along the way congratulated us and had nothing but good things to say about the CDMP process and how we should really be, promoting that nationally as a way to reach consensus and a way of doing business as opposed to yay or nay, which is what the government promotes and I guess is used to. Anyways, so long story short, the federal government, Valcourt, Minister of Indian Affairs, declared that we had no law. Which in our minds was false. So here we are again today, several years later, and I think it's basically what it is our objective is because we've started an internal process with this law, we need to conclude this internal process for our people. Luckily, we haven't really had any issues from what I've been informed of in terms of unions that separate. We do have alternative dispute resolution within the community, and from what I'm told, for the most part, amicable results have happened with people who are separating through that process. So there hasn't really been an issue to date. That doesn't mean one won't happen, which is why, with everything that's being shot at us through the federal government, we need to have, I guess, all our checks and all our balances in place. And this is just to conclude that internal Kahnawake process, not the federal issue.
So this law, you're going to go through the CDMP process. When will that happen?
It'll happen more than likely. We had said early 2020.
Okay.
We don't expect it to be a very long, drawn-out process because all the work has been done. So it's basically for what I can see happening is at the community meeting on Tuesday evening, as you were there, so you know that I informed community we will be doing this. Today, I'm here on K103 to inform via radio. There will be a series of kiosks. We're saying at the services complex because that's normally where kiosks happen between the bank and the post office area. Not to say it won't happen anywhere else, but that's what we see happening. And also, maybe another radio show, half hour or a whole show with the team and. It'll be up to the community to accept it and help us ratify it the way we ratify things, not the way the government is telling us we need to ratify.
Do you know approximately how many people have gone through the ADR process?
I don't have those numbers. No, I don't.
But everything turned out okay so far? Well,
yeah, from what I've been told, it's been mostly amicable resolves. So, the separation has been okay with both parties, and a lot of times it's, it's not a matter of arguing over this and that and pots and pans and things. And it's, sometimes it's just we need to end this for whatever reason and it's ended and people are in agreement with the terms and conditions. And I guess as long as people are respectful, I think that's what I'm hoping for anyways. And that our Mohawk women are being taken care of.
Good. That's very good. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Clinton?
I think in a nutshell, that's about it in regards to the MRP issue and where we are currently. And it's just to give the community a little bit of feedback and a little bit of history. Because, it happened in 2013.
It's been a while, yes.
So, maybe my few words have jogged some memories. And I hope to see a lot of people at the kiosk. When you hear that this is happening, please show up and just give us your confirmation whether or not you think you're in agreement, you disagree, or what you think we should add. And we're all ears, and this law is being created enacted for use for all our benefits. So to ensure that federal law doesn't dictate any further in Kahnawake,
Really?
you know, and it's our way to handle our business our own way.
Good. Thank you very much, Clinton. And I hope to see you sometime soon.
Thanks so much, Arlene.
Okay. Ona.
Ano.
Gwegwe, you are listening to Tetewatha. My guest for the first half was Chief Clinton Phillips, who was discussing the Kahnawake Family Homes Law. And for the second half, we have two more chiefs, Tonya Perron and Ross Montour, giving an update on the cannabis control law. Welcome.
It's nice to be here. It's good to see you, Arlene.
Thank you.
How are you? Getting accustomed to your
I'm
position?
getting accustomed, but there's already been a few glitches. That's why Jenny's
It's okay.
here.
I had him here in the new radio station. I never had it, the old one.
Because Paul had said to me, well, he says, you'll stay. And then she said, yeah. And right away, there was a glitch. And he said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'll just walk out. No.
When you're in that seat, you can't.
No, you can't walk out. Okay, that's just a little joke. Anyway, we have update on the cannabis control law.
Yes. So in response to a number of inquiries from community members with regards to the status of the Cannabis Control Board, the law, the regulations, etc., we thought it would be a good idea to come and give a quick little update on the radio, just so that everybody is on the same page and aware of where we're at. So the Cannabis Control Board is up and running in the sense that they're working on drafting the regulations. There are 3 members to that board. A number of people have asked also, who are those members? They are Brandon Montour, Louis DeLille, and Tara Jacobs. So the 3 of them meet regularly to draft, along with an independent lawyer, the regulations pertaining to the cannabis control law. They have gone through 2 drafts of the regulations, and there's 6 in total that they have to complete. So they're moving on to regulation number 3. The 2 drafts that are actually in draft form are one relating to cultivation and processing, as well as contributions, fees, pricing, etc. That one is really in draft form, like a skeletal draft form, whereas the one with respect to cultivation and processing is in its 5th.
It's the furthest along.
It's in the 5th draft.
Is this a volunteer board?
Yes, it is. So, as I said, they're meeting regularly, and they are a volunteer board. People that have full-time jobs. Brandon is a student, so they have already a full plate in their personal lives, and they've dedicated time on their free time.
Will this be a paid position in the future?
That I'm not sure of yet.
The Cannabis Control Board, they get
they get an
They got
honorarium.
an
honorarium for
Yeah.
their time.
For sure.
Based on a 3-hour meeting at a set amount of money. And if it goes beyond, if there's a need to say at the outset, spend 5 hours in concentration, which hasn't happened yet, then you might look at adjusting it. But that's a basic. We looked around and to have a grasp of what other organizations and similar kinds of situations for honorariums were, in order to allow for a sort of a fair amount. And so, but other than that, you would say it's a voluntary board.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Good.
So I mean, it may evolve. It's yet to be seen. There will be a paid position. We're actually in the process of trying to put together a job description for that, because there needs to be obviously a coordinator, manager, not quite sure what the title will be yet, for the Cannabis Control Board. So that will eventually be coming out to posting once it's finalized, and that would be a paid position.
And also, at the community meeting last Tuesday evening, you spoke about the Health and Safety Committee.
Yep.
And their organizational reps.
Yes, there's 5 organizational reps and 1 community rep. So 1 from the hospital, 1 from KSCS, 1 from education, MCK, and
David A. Daibo is the community rep. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm missing 1 more.
You have education. You have the hospital. KSCS.
Oh, that's the one I missed. Yep, hospital and MCK. Yep. Yes, so they met. They had an initial meeting. They had their orientation. They're going to be working not all the time alongside the Cannabis Control Board, but in tandem with the board to ensure that the regulations, the impact is as minimal as possible on the health and safety. That's their primary objective.
So the retail section of the law is not developed yet.
No, they have not even begun the drafting of the regulations for the retail or dispensaries. I believe, and I don't want to be necessarily quoted on it, but I think that that's the one that they're moving on to now. So there's not even a preliminary draft, but I think there should be one coming soon.
There needs to be some steps developed along the way in terms of some of the direction will come from the table. We're looking at some kind of a market study in order to say, give the board some direction as to how they might approach retail, but mainly it's cultivation that's the most advanced. But it's moving along. But we're trying to do this very carefully. It's very complex. I mean, you have the Health and Safety Committee is on the other side of the scale, which is, obviously the well-being of people, ameliorating against, the addictions issues. Same thing when we had an ABC board, and there was that sort of educational thing. But this is, I think, for the community, was a very, very difficult transition to start thinking about cannabis as something as a legalized thing, which was thrust upon us.
Yes.
So it does present the economic side of it, but also there's the health and safety thing. So one of the things that's going to happen is that the next Cannabis Control Board meeting is the Health and Safety Committee will be meeting with the Cannabis Control Board.
Would there be any observers at this?
During these meetings?
During these meetings that they have? No.
No.
Okay. No. Just asking.
So I just wanted to also put out there, just in terms of information-wise, as I said at the beginning, we've been receiving a lot of inquiries, from community members about when can I apply, is there any licenses available right now? So at the moment, the application process is not open. The forms are not completed. Only once all of the regulations are finalized and implemented or enacted will there be an application process that is open, and of course the community will be informed of when that is. And then the process is going to be whatever is set out in the regulations. That's what people will have to do to obtain licenses. They'll be aware of the different license categories that are available, pricing, etc. All of that will be put out to the community. In fact, even before it's enacted, it will be posted for review. So the community will be aware of what the regulations are going to look like, and there'll be some opportunity for what we'll call feedback.
So in the meantime, the moratorium remains in place.
Exactly.
The moratorium remains in place.
Of course.
And really to really underscore it, Arlene, is that, people, they may not keep track, and they send in applications or call to make inquiries. And I think maybe the thinking is, if I get it in now, I'll be a little bit further ahead in the lineup to get a permit. And that isn't the case. In all fairness, once the regulations are in place and functional, that's when applications will be considered, not before then. So it really, and if anybody's thinking about that, it's not going to put you in any advantage. In fact, one of the things, because, say, of things like Health Canada, for instance, it's a big expenditure of financial resource. And you're taking a big risk by not waiting. And I understand that people are becoming anxious about being able to look at the economic possibilities side of the equation. But right now, that's the way the law's been set out. The moratorium is in place until all of the regulations are in place, and the board is set up to begin to review applications. And that's, people need to bear that in mind and hopefully be patient and wait until then.
Of course, and it's basically for the safety of the community that this law was created.
I think people in different parts of the country, First Nations communities, are looking very closely at Kahnawake, and in terms of the approach that we have taken, which I think you would have to say is very responsible. It's very considered.
Especially the age.
The age thing
and
was
now
very...
Quebec has adopted 21
that's right.
in January.
That was, for me, as a grandparent, the idea of the potential effect health-wise on developing brains was a core issue for me. And the idea that it could only be 21 somehow was disappointing. And then, of course, with Canada deciding it was 18. And now Quebec says it's 21. There may be tests, constitutional tests against whether that's against Quebec for that. I don't know. But for the moment, it's good that it's 21.
So the cannabis law, does this involve the edibles and oils and things like that? It is only the raw product.
For the moment, the law doesn't set out what types of products will be available or will be legal.
Because there's so many things available now on the outside that,
So I don't believe that there was any discussions or questions asked during the survey or the polling with respect to edibles. Edibles was kind of not on the radar. I don't believe now. Of course, it's legal. So I guess it's something that the board is going to have to determine. Are there going to be regulations regarding edibles? And I don't know. How does the community feel about edibles? Not quite sure where the edible.
But even on the outside,
even on the outside.
I mean,
sure.
gummy bears, kids, that kind of thing.
There actually has been some children that have eaten the edibles in this community.
Yeah, but those have been purchased from illegal sources.
Oh, for sure. But I'm just saying it has happened.
Yes. It is, and that's of a deep concern. It should be a deep concern of all people in the community. I don't care what side of the equation you're on. Okay, we have to be responsible about this.
So the edibles, that question will have to be answered whether or not it's going to be. Is there going to be licensing for edibles in the community? Also, with respect to topicals and creams and lotions that contain CBD oil. Yeah. The CBD oil is the non-high portion of the plant, right? It's no THC, but it's still regulated because of the fact that it still comes from that plant. So there's going to be, question of, is there going to be licenses for creams, soaps, lip balms, whatever it is that you may have, that have CBD oil in it? That still has to also be looked at.
Or even someone making a batch of brownies. I heard a story about that. That's why I'm laughing. Go ahead.
Yeah, to me, that one of the things that probably, and I would like people in the community to think about it. It doesn't matter where you are. You might say, well, it's legal now or whatever. The thing with, say, the legal alcohol as a legal substance for generations now. So people have alcohol, they have it at home or what have you, And for the most part, your children are not going to partake, of it. And so there's some aspect of a natural kind of safety barrier. But if you're at home and you decide to make brownies, and
that's it.
And it has cannabis in it, or you buy it and it's packaged and it looks like a nice candy bar, or even if you smoke it at home, all of a sudden, the issue of that kind of secondhand smoke. I mean, I went to concerts at the Bell Center where there's all kinds of, weed in the air. And it affects you.
It does. It does.
You're not asking for it.
You can pass by people and you can smell it.
Yeah. Even last night I went to see Barack Obama at the Bell Center.
Did you?
And
Good.
And in Quebec, you're not supposed to be able to smoke in public now on the street, but you could smell it all around. So, but I mean, people should bear that in mind. And the issue of edibles, everything has to be approached very responsibly,
cautiously. Is there anything else you'd like to add about the law?
The one thing we were talking about, the educational opportunities that exist, and Tonya had done some research. One of the things that people, when the law was drafted, before it was passed, the issue about safety and how do we ensure the safety of the product? And at the time, it's like, well, we don't have the expertise to be able to do the testing and the monitoring of quality control and all of those things.
So is this why Health Canada was involved?
That's why Health Canada was involved. And some people would say, oh, well, you're bringing in that jurisdiction.
Yeah, right.
But it was written into the law that that was for the interim until such time as we would develop the expertise to be able to take that on for ourselves and then be able to negotiate that with the government. And what Tonya has found is that there are schools available out there that in fact have core programs on that.
For quality assurance people, for the inspectors, everything from A to Z with respect to what's now going, become the cannabis industry. It's a whole new world out there.
It is.
So there's numerous educational opportunities, even courses for getting involved in retail, just to have the knowledge, etc. So Ross and I were discussing it, and we were going to try to get a gauge on the interest of members in the community, that would be interested in pursuing these types of courses and obtaining the certification necessary. And if we can see that there's an interest there, then we'll follow up with it and see what can be done either through DEWA or through the Ed Center or, through any means possible, because that's what we want to do, is we want to develop our own expertise within the community. And there's opportunities out there for that. So
think careers, folks.
So are the opportunities still there for Kahsennenhawe to be involved? As a whole. Well, as a business venture. Has that been discussed lately since the end of the canopy?
Yeah. No. I mean, there've been some discussions about what the way forward is as far as that goes.
Possibilities.
The possibilities, but there's no whale on the horizon, canopy, right there and then. But we're exploring what those opportunities are. And I just wanted to point, because your question gets to the fact that one of the concerns of the community when the technical survey was done was that if it was going to be here in any capacity as cultivated or sold or whatever, the community had to see a benefit from it. So the law is structured that way in terms of seeing that say the Cannabis Control Board functions on its own financially. There's a return to the community, but we're still looking at the possibility of a revenue generation stream. But you need to have a balance too in terms of the opportunities for the private sector as well.
Of course.
Yep.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
I'm good with that. The one thing I would say, though, okay, so you can tell I've done this before. If you look at my sleeve there, you can focus in on it. The reason I'm a slob today is we've been busy working on the Christmas parade float. I just want people to come out.
Oh, for the
parade.
The parade on Sunday.
Yes. Okay. What is your float, may I ask?
No,
it's a secret.
No, you have to wait. You have to be out
till
there.
Sunday. Okay.
And
top secret.
Enjoy it.
So
we're watching the weather. So far, it's not going to be sub-zero.
Well, I hope not. I mean, this weather is absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, thank you for your time, and it was a pleasure to have you.
It was. It's an absolute pleasure to see you again in this studio.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Ona. Good afternoon, and this is Arlene Jacobs, your host for today on Tetewatha. We just heard from Chiefs Tonya Perron and Ross Montour speaking about the cannabis control law. We now have another chief. We almost have quorum here today. We're Chief Kahsennenhawe Sky Deer, and she will be talking on governance. Welcome, Gus.
And I'm with her.
Yes. And Tonya is staying with her as backup.
Yeah, well.
So what about governance?
Okay, so I guess, there's a lot. So Tonya and I have been working very well together, as you and I did in the past.
Yes.
We make a very good team. Governance is a new portfolio this term, and I think it was tried numerous times over the years with it has a number of goals, I would say. And number one, what we focused on, because it's in 3 phases. So I'll try to give an overview of the 3 phases. So phase 1 was the governing documents for the council table itself. So what we already passed was a administration guidelines. It basically just deals with the day-to-day, like how we're remunerated, hours that we put in of work, overtime, like benefits, all that, administrative stuff that was never really formalized. So that was completed. And then the second one was
regulations of the operations of chief and council.
Yep. And that's basically how the council table functions in meetings, what's quorum, how do we derive at decisions, just how we function. So it's crazy to think that in all the years of the way council has been operating, that these documents were never officially codified, because what's happened now in the last term, we've had 2 new chiefs come in on by-election.
Right. That's right.
And how great would it be for there to be a manual that they could read and say, oh, okay, I understand, like this is the expectations when I come into this position. So we know that there's one that exists, a MCK manual for all of the employees. So what we thought was important was to have one for
specifically
for chief and council.
That's good. That's good.
There were some that existed, but they were either in draft form, or if they were passed, they didn't go far enough in the extent, of covering everything. So when we went back and reviewed them, it became obvious that they needed a lot of work on them. So those 2 documents now have been actually passed by the table and are technically enforced, I guess.
I think that when new council members are elected, they really don't know what they're getting into. I mean, you yourself, Tonya, being a lawyer, having educational background and a justice background, to come into the council table, it was different, much different, and nothing that like you expected. No. I know, because I spoke to you before, so that's why I'm saying that.
And I think that had I been given a manual of some sort,
something
even
what
during
to
the campaigning,
expect.
You have an idea of what to expect, because you have a general idea, of course, of what's entailed. But when you're actually sitting at the table and now it's time for a decision, or something comes up and you're just all looking at each other and like, okay, well, how do we go about dealing with this? Well, is it written anywhere? No. Okay. So it makes it a lot easier to know how you're supposed to do it, what you're supposed to do, and it allows also for consistency right across the board. So even with the change of members at the table, you have the same procedure, process. All of that is always, or should be always, the same when you have it in black and white. So this is the work, that we've been doing, and so we're happy with the first part that we've accomplished, and now we're moving into phase 2.
So is there like a code of conduct going to be in here?
That's what we're working on.
That's
now.
what you're working on. Okay.
Yes. So as mentioned in phase 1, a lot of it was getting these documents that were either not formalized or passed by council as being in force. So we did 2. There's 2 more that are outstanding. Yeah. One of them is a terms of reference. So it's kind of like a job description, And then this 4th one is a code of conduct. But with regard to that, we felt that the community definitely has a vested interest in that. When this project first got developed, there's a whole project charter here. There's a team that is on the governance. So myself and Tonya are the portfolio chiefs, but then we also have the project sponsor is the Council of Chiefs. The project steering committee is the governance portfolio team. So there's other individuals that assist. We have a project lead, which is Winona Polson-Lahash. She's the chief political advisor. We hired a project manager, which is Gerald Ayage-Alfred. And then we have 2 other team members, which are Alana Goodleaf-Rice and Dwayne White. So when Gerald was brought in and we talked about this phase 2 approach to the code of conduct, what he wants to do. And I think it would be appropriate. We actually recommended for him to come in and give a full overview of phase 2, more detail, because I'm just going to give an overview of what's entailed in this, is to have kitchen table talks with families in the community and ask what are their expectations when it comes to chief and council and our accountability, conduct, all these things that, as mentioned, there's been a void. We have the disciplinary measures regulations that was passed before, but does it still meet the standards and expectations of what the community has come to believe are the roles and responsibilities, and what chiefs should be doing in their day-to-day and how they interrelate with the community?
Really, actually, how a chief conducts themselves for themselves.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And that's the point I was just going to make, is that although we have the disciplinary measures, only community members can lodge complaints, raise issues with respect to fellow chiefs through that process. Really, internally, there's nothing for us to deal with ourselves or each other. And there's got to be some type of accountability there as well. And this is where hopefully the code of conduct, ethical code of conduct, not quite sure what the title will be, but that would be to resolve those matters. And a procedure, of course, also for addressing them. Because at times it's unfortunate. It shouldn't be that, chiefs would have to discuss what do we do with another chief, but unfortunately it happens. And you're right, really, we should be accountable to ourselves, and we shouldn't even necessarily have to have that.
No,
but
really.
In reality, you have to have something in place.
It's human nature.
Exactly. So really this, the code of conduct is going to be a really important piece to this whole governance framework.
It sounds really interesting.
Definitely. And then if you want me to touch on to phase 3, which is an even bigger endeavor, in my opinion, is looking at governance in the community as a whole, and where the elected council fits as opposed to traditional. And we have the 79 mandate to return to traditional government. What does the community see as the interface between the two? Are we ready to look at, the realities that we're in right now? What does it mean to get out of the Indian Act? What, all the things that affect us on a governance level, we need to have those conversations. So
I think those are things that the community does not understand. What does it mean for us to get out of the Indian Act? What does it mean for the person on the street? Never mind council. What does it mean for the ordinary person walking down the street one day?
And I think we would have to do a whole, political assessment of that to have the information. We need to make an informed decision. And as a community, one day, where do we go? And I think there's a big education process that has to happen. As a matter of fact, when the IAG came and started laying the groundwork for this whole governance framework, he presented a PowerPoint to the council, and we were like, you need to show the community this. It basically showed the evolution of organizations in the community and how we displaced the Indian agent and how we pushed out, all of that interference, and how the community has taken authority in so many areas, be it the hospital, be it the membership, education, exactly. And it was
healthcare,
inspiring,
exactly. So be it as it may, that you still have that sort of Indian Act in the background. When you see this presentation that he has, you see how far away we're actually getting from it.
But that's what community members will throw back at council. Why your Indian Act ban council? But we're not really,
We've evolved into community governance.
Of course.
And it's still evolving, and it needs to go further, and that's what this phase 3 is going to be about. So that's going to be a really big piece, a lot of work to be done there. And of course, it's not going to be something that's going to be overnight. It's going to take time to complete that portion, but it'll be the final. It'll be the final piece to all of the governance.
And I agree, it's going to be a huge education process, but it's well worth the time and the effort and the money. Because it's going to take money.
Well, for this project specifically, we targeted it to last until the end of 2020, even going into 2021. But we were just having a discussion about other policies and things that are probably going to need to be developed because we are evolving and growing, that although it is a new portfolio for this term of office up until 2021, we could see the work continuing beyond. And it's all, to me, fulfillment of that shared community vision statement, about where we're going as a community. And I'm happy to see that there's a lot more collaboration and positivity going on.
And what you're really doing is laying the groundwork for other people to run for council, that they'll have something to follow.
That's what we keep talking about for the future. When we're not at the table anymore, what do you want to see? Because before I was in the position I'm in now, being just a community member, you're saying, you wish, and you want council to do this, and why can't they do that? And so seeing now, what's missing, and thinking ahead to, okay, when we're not here, how do we want our council to function? It doesn't mean it can't be, of course, modified or changed. It's not like anybody's hands are going to be tied, to it, like without any flexibility. But at least we know what we're
and maybe one of these days there will be no council.
Exactly.
And we have to think of that also.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep.
The traditional body may
possible.
Grow and take over.
It's very possible.
And anything's possible.
Exactly. So we're just preparing for what we foresee, at least in the next, in the near future, and and just trying to make things a lot clearer for everybody, community as well as the table.
Because ultimately, the Council of Chiefs is basically like a board that governs, all of the community operations, finances, etc. You're always going to need some oversight when it comes to all of those matters. Nowhere are we trying to say we're displacing what that role and responsibility is of the traditional government and the Confederacy of Chiefs. But we have to have the community understand the role that the council plays in the community, and what maybe they'll say there's got to be limitations. There's always been this looming idea of this 8 points of jurisdiction that we shouldn't have any hand in, but let's have a community conversation because it includes very big items such as membership, such as all of our lands, relations with external governments. So eventually we're going to have to figure out who then has that responsibility on behalf of the community of Kahsennenhawe, not talking about the nation. Because our community is very unique. We're very stern. We're very, we have a vision of where we want to go and where we've been, and we have a lot of history, and we're pretty angry about a lot of stuff that has happened to us. When you look around this community, all the land expropriations and the things that cut through this territory, we have principles strong, not another inch. So, it's going to be a very interesting future, and I'm really excited about, the groundwork that we're laying here for this community to talk respectfully about our governance.
So, of course, there will be further community consultation in the future.
Yes, definitely.
Like,
and like I said,
early in the new year?
Well, Gerald,
I think he's getting ready before Christmas.
Yeah, he wants to start having these kitchen table talks probably within the next month. So we encouraged him to reach out to schedule a show to go into more detail about how this is going to work, and if families out there are interested in having their input on this code of conduct, about the accountability framework, about governance in general. To have it in your mind that when he comes on and starts laying out how you could get in contact to be a part of this, he's the guy that's been tasked with the phase 2 community engagement of the governance portfolio project.
Well, thank you, ladies. Do you have anything else to add? You have about 2 minutes.
No, just going to echo what Beth said, and really excited about the work that's taking place. Really happy also to see we have a lot of support from the table about what we're doing. I think it's really going to prove at the end of the day to be useful, and as I said, good for everybody all the way around. And I'm excited to see also what the community input will be.
For sure. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us,
Thank
and
you for
have
having
a
us.
good weekend. And it was very interesting.
All right.
See you again soon.
Ona.